collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Well, I must say it's good to be back with you after the summer break, and coming up on the programme this week, we will hear how the inadequate money given to asylum seekers means that many of them can't find accommodation and are being forced to sleep rough in our parks.
With the fear that tomorrow I will not know where my children will sleep, I will not know if I will have food for my children, I will not know if I will have the most basic to survive.
And starting tomorrow, it's our annual cultural bonanza with the Kypria International Festival.
We have really to work hard to make a decent program with some highlights like this year's presence of the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra or the Martha Graham Dance Company from New York.
The Cyprus Stop Trafficking NGO recently sent an open letter to President Nikos Anastasiades and the Cabinet. It was published and it was clear that they were complaining quite bitterly about the inadequate allowance for asylum seekers in Cyprus. Joining us to discuss the issue from KISA, the NGO for Action for Equality, Support and Anti-Racism, is Doros Polikarpou. Doros, you work quite closely with the Cyprus Stop Trafficking people, and I think you know all the details about this. It does seem, from what I've read, that there are people sleeping in the open in the park because they can't afford to find a roof over their heads.
Yes, we do work together with Cyprus Stop Trafficking, and Caritas is also aware and trying to deal with these issues. Unfortunately, there is no positive response on the side of the government on how to tackle this. Many of us or all the NGOs, they are left alone and to find solutions. And it's quite impossible right now for various reasons. Because, first of all, the amount of money given to the people to rent accommodation is inadequate to secure accommodation. I mean, you can imagine that nowadays with €100, it's impossible to rent or share accommodation or to rent your own accommodation.
Well, I did have a little bit of a look before I came over to talk to you, and it seems that the average rent, certainly in Nicosia, is something like €400 a month.
The average is €400 a month, and not only, I mean, even if two people come together and they want to rent this accommodation, still is not possible with the money they get. And if it's a family, then we have another problem, because on purpose, when they agreed on the amounts to allocate for the accommodation, our parliament, in my opinion, an unacceptable logic behind it, they decided that irrespective of the size of the family, they will give maximum €250 for a family unit to rent accommodation. So you can imagine that if you say €400 not enough for one person, you can imagine it's what needed for one person, and €100 or €200 is not enough to secure accommodation for a single person. You can imagine what does mean if you have a family with 3 or 4 children, and then you are looking for accommodation in Nicosia or in Limassol or in another city for €250, which is impossible. But it's not just the amount that is allocated. The issue is that the people, they have to pay. They have to have the money, secure accommodation, pay the rent, pay the guarantee, which means that, let's say we are a family of 4, it means that we found accommodation for €600, it means that we have to have at least €2,000 to prepay, 2 months guarantee, plus 1 month in advance, and we pay this amount of money. We get a contract. If we get a contract, because there are owners of landlords that they prefer to rent the accommodation to people that they don't make a contract with them in order to avoid taxation. So let's say you got this contract and you can submit it to the authorities, and you wait for another 4 months to get the payment for this accommodation. So you can imagine that under these circumstances, the people, they don't have the money to prepay the rent, even if they find somehow accommodation, and then they have the problem of the height of the rent, and they have the problem to maintain, because for the first 6 months, you are not allowed to work, and you get this small amount of money as a subsidy for rent. But after the 6 months, then you will be asked, irrespective of the conditions you have, to take up employment in farming and agriculture, which means that you will get 420 euro a salary, and then based on this amount of money, irrespective of the height, your family is out of the system, because in the reception condition law says that regulations says that people who has employment, irrespective of the amount they earn, they are not allowed for reception conditions.
So do they then not get the food vouchers and the clothing vouchers?
No, nothing. From the moment one member of the family is employed, the rest of the family depends on this 400 euro to live, to pay accommodation, to
pay electricity,
clothing, everything with this 400 euro. You can imagine that under these circumstances, the people are stuck in confinement, and because at least they are isolated, they are away from the cities, they are away of any of any interaction with the society, but at least they have a secure place to sleep, they have some food, and they cannot run from the morning until the evening with the fear that tomorrow I will not know where my children will sleep, I will not know if I will have food for my children, I will not know if I will have the most basic to survive.
Now, let's have a look at how this compares with the guaranteed minimum income, which is something that was rolled out, I think, a couple of years ago here in Cyprus, and it gives people just about enough, according to the government, to live, if not with dignity, but at least to live. And they get 760 euros per person per month.
Yes, it depends if it's a family or it's a single person, of course, but you are right. And we have to remember that this was the situation for asylum seekers until 2013 as well. And it's true that it's not an amount that we can say, okay, you can live and you can cover well your basic needs, but at least you have the necessary money for survival. Now, with this situation that we have with the reception conditions, it's impossible. It's impossible to find accommodation. It's impossible to maintain your benefits after the 6 months, and it's impossible to provide for your family for food and clothing and electricity and
we
water.
Haven't mentioned the fact that, as far as I'm aware, certainly the last time I looked into this, the vouchers for the food and the clothing very often don't arrive when they're supposed to, so you get people who are waiting for the vouchers, which can only be spent at certain rather pricey grocery stores, and it just seems extraordinary to me that we're making life so difficult for these people.
Well, people try to explain this policy in one or the other way. You mentioned something that is an additional burden on the people. Even this little money they get, they don't get it
on time
and in cash, so that they can go and buy the necessary things they need for their family from the places that they believe that is the better quality for the price they can afford. So, and this we all know that they are the gross supermarkets. So none of the gross supermarkets is in this system, which means that the people are forced to go to these small neighborhood shops, and even there we have a very clear violations of a discriminatory approach, because there are products that the owners tell the asylum seekers very clearly that these products, a small department within the store, that it says you can buy only from this department, because they are, for some reason, they distinguish between those that usual people can buy and those asylum seekers can buy, which is very obvious, not the same quality with the rest of the products.
And double the price compared to the big supermarkets. We've checked.
Definitely. And of course, you can imagine you as a single mother, you don't have a bus card, you have children, you need to buy a bottle of gas with the voucher, and the next small supermarket in Nicosia, we have 2 or 3 supermarkets like this. So you have to travel sometimes 3 or 4 kilometers with 5 kilometers with the bus in order to reach the nearest supermarket that is allocated by the government.
Okay, let's bring this to a close. How has that letter to the Cabinet been received? Has there been any reply, any feedback? And what can you as KISA do about this business of the vouchers? Why is it not very simple that people go to an office and collect cash in hand to spend on what they need to spend it on?
My feeling is that the government took this measure with the aim to discourage people from coming to Cyprus. Unfortunately, I think this is what it was calculated with this decision. There is no other logical explanation.
So you're saying basically that the authorities here are actively trying to make life difficult so that possibly the word gets back to wherever these people are coming from. Don't come to Cyprus, it's dreadful.
To make the life of asylum seekers is difficult anywhere. What they try to do here is to make the life impossible or to make it terrible in a way so that they cannot bear anymore this situation. The people, and they either leave the country if they arrive in the country, or they don't even come. We know that this doesn't work. It's an illusion. It's the same illusion with our migration policies, the migration policy that we believe that people will arrive, they will work for 4 years, and then they will leave the country, and it doesn't work. And then you need to establish a system that is more and more difficult. It's the same way. The people, when they decide to go to a country to seek protection, they don't have the luxury to decide whether I will go to Greece or I will go to Cyprus. They go to the nearest country they can reach for their protection according to the money they can afford to pay to the smugglers. I want to make aware that there are no legal ways for refugees to arrive in Europe nowadays. All of them, they have to pay smugglers. So if you are a single person and you have a family and you have certain amount of money, you have to find the most secure way to reach a country where it's safe for your country. So you don't think whether the conditions there will be better or worse. So this policy didn't work, didn't achieve what they expected to do. We have more asylum seekers this year than we had in the past, so it doesn't work. The only thing we made is that we make the life of the people so miserable, of these people. And I would remind that what is the message we give to the children? What is the message we give to these asylum seekers that tomorrow will be the future refugees that we are going to try to integrate in this society? But it's going to be very difficult based on this very negative experience they make initially from this society. And these are going to be the children, the future citizens in this country. They will become citizens in this country. We have to be aware. I mean, later or sooner, we have no other option than to accept these people that they will become part of our society. So the better we do is to decide as soon as possible to give them an opportunity to become equal citizens, to feel part of this society,
and to contribute
to this society. They are even excluded. We are one of the few countries that we even exclude the refugees and the asylum seekers from contributing. They can contribute much more than we allow them to do so, and we don't even allow them to do this in this country.
Well, it's got to change sooner or later. Hopefully it will. We've been talking to Doros Polikarpou from KISA, Action for Equality, Support and Anti-Racism, about that letter sent to the government complaining about the totally inadequate allowances that are given by the government here to people who are seeking asylum.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
For the last 25 years or so, September and October have been the months of the Kypria International Festival. It's a feast of music, drama, dance, well, anything really to do with culture. And the artistic director of the festival is Andy Bargili, who joins us now. Andy, tell us about this year's event, because it does seem every year to become more all-encompassing and bigger and better.
Well, I wish it's really as you described, that it's getting bigger and better. It's really a big effort to do so, because we don't have a big budget, and the budget actually is coming less and less and less every year. So we have really to work hard to make a decent program with some highlights, like this year's presence of the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra or the Martha Graham Dance Company from New York. And it's always very difficult to put together a program, because we are getting something like 90 to 100 proposals, and some they're really very attractive and very interesting and of high standard, so it's very hard to make the final choice, which depends, of course, also on financial aspect of each proposal. Because
so how do you go about getting those invitations out to different people so that they pitch, if you like, to be included?
Well, actually, we don't invite, but we announce, and we are asking people and groups and artists and companies to make proposals to the festival. And after the deadline, we gather everything. We just separate each according to the kind of the performance. If it's dance, if it's music, if it's for children, or if it's drama, and so on. And then we are going through, watching the videos and reading everything about the proposal and trying to make the best selection possible. It's a very, very stressful procedure, because if you realize that you are dealing with artists, you have to be very careful how you will make your decision, and how you will say no and how you will say yes.
And particularly if you have to say no, how you will say it in such a way that they might still apply the following year.
Yes, always we are very careful to say that we will be most happy if they would like to try it once more, and maybe in the future it will be possible to include their proposal or another proposal of the same group. For instance, this year we have this Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra from Amsterdam, which is one of the most important orchestras worldwide. And at the same time, we had another two orchestras, one from Prague, one from Oxford, really very good proposals, but we couldn't include all three, so we had to choose one, and we chose the Concertgebouw Orchestra.
Who I don't think have ever been to Cyprus before, have they?
Never ever. It's the first time that they appear in Cyprus. It's a great event, the greatest event of this year's program.
And they'll be opening it tomorrow, the start of the festival on the 1st of September. Yes, they start the
festival 1st of September at Curium Asian Theatre, and it's going to be a two-piece program. The first piece is Wagner's piece, and it's a part of their program side by side with young musicians, so some Cypriot young musicians from both communities. They will participate with this famous
That's an
orchestra.
opportunity, wow.
A big opportunity. Then we'll follow the Mahler's Symphony Number 9. Originally it was announced the number 7, but in the meantime they changed their mind that they will make the
Mahler's number 9.
Number 9, which is much more attractive than number 7 anyhow.
Okay, so it's got wider appeal, you think. What else have you got coming up?
Well, in music, we have 2 pianos. It's Martino Tirimo and Atsuko Kawakami. They will present a full program under the title Dance in Music. And this recital, if I may say so, of 2 pianos, it's dedicated to the 25th anniversary of after the death of Nicholas Economou, this young, very talented Cypriot pianist who died very, very young. And in the program they will perform Nicholas Economou adaptations on Nutcracker, some dance pieces of Nutcracker arranged by Nicholas Economou. And then we have the captivating jazz by the Ioannou Vafeas jazz group, which are featuring Grant Stewart, a very famous New York-based Canadian saxophonist. He's a star. So that's all about music, okay? And then we have drama. We have the Clever Little Lies by Joe Di Pietro, and it's performed in Greek by the Kati Andadoulaki Theatre. It's a very nice comedy about the situation in a family and how with little clever lies you are trying to keep peace in the family. And we have also The Servant of Two Masters, the famous Goldoni's piece, which is the most popular one. It's a very nice comedy. The way they will stage this production, it's going to be very close to commedia dell'arte style with the masks and the costumes and everything. So we are just looking forward to see this wonderful production of Cypriot artists. And this production is directed by Adonis Floridis. And then in dance we have, it's another highlight of this year's program, is the Martha Graham Dance Company.
Everybody has heard of them, but tell us a little bit more about them.
Well, Martha Graham is a legend, okay? Is a legend in the modern dance. When somebody is trying to describe what really was the input of Martha Graham's approach in modern dance, you can just compare it only to the classic ballet. It's as good as classic ballet, but in a modern way, and she started so many decades ago and is still a kind of how to teach the proper way the modern dance. And they are going to present some of the best choreographies by her, some refreshed by the company, but mainly they're going to present some of the most important choreographies of her. And then we have some plays for children. It's Hansel and Gretel, the Grimm's Fairy Tale, but adapted by Carmen Rungeri. She's having a children's stage in Athens. She's maybe now the best one in Athens, doing performances for children. And it's adapted so it's more friendly to the young audience, because, as you know, the original tale is that
it's a little bit horrendous, isn't it?
Yes.
It can frighten small kids.
Yes.
So when you say for children, what sort of age group is that for?
Well, as from 4 years old, it's suitable.
Okay, they won't burst into tears at the horrid bits.
No. It's so well adapted, and it's full of dance and music and very colorful production with rich costumes and very colorful sets. It's really very friendly to tender ages. Okay. And then we have the Teen City. It's a play by Eugenia Fakinou, and is staged by some local young artists. It's an unusual city where the teens are the heroes of the play, and it's a play with very many environmental messages to people not to pollute and all these things, but at the same time it's very funny with music and nice dialogues and funny events and very great characters. Each tin or each garbage is a character, and all this goes together and makes a nice story with good messages. And then we have the so-called open to the public performances, which are ticket-free. You just go there and you attend, and we have two of this kind. The one is named Echo. It's addressed to children mainly, but also for a bigger audience, and it's going to take place in Aglanja Academias Park. And it's a walking theater performance where a young child in the forest is following the echo. Because at the same time we have the story of Echo, who lost her voice, and she could only communicate through the voice of the other. And the child trying to find Echo is finding out actually herself, because we are talking about the young girl. And then we have a music open to the public event, it's called Cine Accordes. It's a guitarist group with a soprano, and they will perform music from famous film scores. And this will be performed in Limassol and in Ayia Napa. More or less, we are covering the entire Cyprus. I mean, we have performances in Paphos, in Kourium, Limassol, Larnaca, Ayia Napa, and of course Nicosia. So that's all more or less this year.
It's a pretty wide programme. Now, I know that people may want to get hold of the leaflets that you've printed or look it up online to see where they can get tickets from. How much, generally speaking, are the tickets apart from those two free concerts?
The price is 10 for adults and 5 for pensioners and children, students, soldiers, and free for all for disabled people. And they can get their tickets from either So Easy kiosks, in selected So Easy kiosks, the bigger ones, and online at soldouttickets.com.cy, or even if they will visit our site, kyprian.org.cy, they can just push an icon and get directly to the ticket sales. The way, you can do it via your PC or tablet or phone.
And how are tickets selling?
Well, quite well. We have covered already the 31% of what we are expecting. And that's,
which is not bad, because it's still holiday time.
It's still holiday time. We are still just starting now. Hopefully we will cover our target.
And of course, in Cyprus, people are notorious for leaving everything to the last minute. So I guess
not so much in Nicosia, but much more in Paphos, Larnaca, and Limassol, where everything is going the last moment, and so on and so on.
So if you would like to get tickets to any of those fabulous performances, you can find out more at kypria.org.cy. There's a Facebook page as well, and at the So Easy kiosks, the bigger ones, you can buy tickets. But I'm sure if you look it up online, you'll find all the details.
All the details and all necessary information, yes. And we have a phone line for any additional information may somebody wants to ask, and this is 7000-2212.
That's 7000-2212 if you would like to do it by telephone and enjoy, well, almost a couple of months of fabulous theatre, dance and music at this year's Kypria International Festival. We were talking to Andy Bargilis, who is the artistic director of the festival. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.